Good morning. Today we're going to talk about one of the most important strategies for your overall annual sales success. Specifically, I'm going to show you some tactics that will help you grow your existing accounts. You see, your good customers are leaving. Let's face these facts. Now, they're not writing resignation notices, they're not firing you, they're not suing you, but I believe all good customers are leaving. Now, the reason for that is the fact that the decision making matrix within your customer's organization changes every 2.4 years according to studies. This means the circumstances, the criteria, the challenges that a company had 2.5 years ago, perhaps when they signed up with you, have changed. As those situations change, their view of the value of your product or service or the relationship with your company may change. The men and women that approved bringing your company on board at some point in the past have been promoted, resigned, moved on, whatever. The net result is the game has changed, and it's required that you make sure that you stay on top of the new game. I believe that spending time with your existing customers is the best way to grow your top line because it's 8 times harder to find new customers than it is to keep the ones you currently have. I believe that we rarely lose our customers in a loud, explosive, cataclysmic event. More often than not, we lose them one order at a time. You see, it's easy for us to become overconfident regarding the fact that this customer buys from us exclusively. I've heard a lot of salespeople say, I own that account. And I think that's a very dangerous strategy or philosophy to embrace. You own the account for as long as it takes for the last PO to be processed. As soon as that PO is processed, I believe that your account is now your competitor's best prospect. So treat all of your accounts as if they're prospects for your competition, because indeed they are. We will lose these accounts one order at a time, and the best way to protect that is the strategy that I call top to top. I want you to get as high in the organization as you can. I want you to understand the goals of the organization and the agendas of the various people involved with recommending a new product, a new project, a new procedure, and most importantly, keeping existing vendors. I think a top-to-top meeting every 90 days is appropriate for you to execute that. You see, I believe there are 4 entities involved with every sale. Every time you sell an account, there is an entity that is employing the man or woman that you are selling to, their boss, their company. The same goes for you as a sales professional. Your boss, your company, also has a separate entity in this relationship. Then there's the buyer, the man that or woman that you're talking to, and then there's you. These 4 entities all relate at one level or another. Now, part of your job is to understand how the decision maker, represented by the box with the DM in it on this chart, interacts with all of the influencers in your account. We can get an order from one influencer. We can get an order from one decision maker. But you can't keep the account if you don't know all of the influencers as well as all of the decision makers. If you don't know how they align with each other and what their respective agendas are, you could be in trouble and not know it. I like to look at an account on a matrix like the one that I've drawn on the screen. Remember, there's the buyer's quadrant. That's where the buyer's agenda resides. There's your quadrant. That's where your agenda resides. There's your company's agenda and your buyer's company's or employer's agenda. When you first meet a new account, those agendas are separated by the maximum amount of distance. The buyer's agenda is out on the corner. You are the same. The employer of the buyer is the same, as well as your employer. As we start selling, our job is to try and move these agendas. In this particular scenario, because the agendas are displaced maximally, there's no chance of selling that account. I repeat, the agendas are displaced, there's no overlap, there's no alignment. your offer, your product is not complementing their agendas, both the buyer as an individual and the buyer's employer as an organization, so there's no chance of closing that deal. Your goal is to understand agenda-based selling because this is the strategy that will help you keep and grow your existing accounts. In order to do that, you must learn all of the agendas within any particular account, and you must determine how to align these agendas. Now in this illustration, the blue dots representing the various agendas are starting to move closer together. So the chances are getting better that you'll be able to sell a particular account or sell that organization on building a better relationship with you. But please note, the agendas do not yet align, so it's going to be tough to close this account. The buyer's employer is not necessarily impressed, neither is the buyer. And look at where the seller's employer agenda is. It hasn't moved at all. So this is a representation of a sales opportunity that doesn't complement the agenda of the employer. Now you can read the mind of your companies that you're selling to if and only if you understand all of the agendas and all of the quadrants. Understanding your agenda, that is, I need to get a sale, doesn't necessarily mean that you understand the agenda of the 3 other participants in every sale. So before you attack an account, before you try to grow an account, I want you to step back and take a look at the history, the story so far, if you will, regarding your relationship with that account. Did they come to you because they needed a particular product? In other words, was the original sale a transaction? Has that sale evolved into a partnership? Or are you still just dealing with that account order by order? I want you to step back and ask these questions that are on your screen. Can the agendas be moved? In many cases, the agendas can't be moved. When the agendas can't be moved to come into alignment, you really don't have an opportunity. So this is an acid test that you can apply to your sale opportunity or your account opportunity early in your relationship. Now, you may have obtained the account transactionally. They needed a product. The incumbent that was handling the account dropped the ball. They were out of stock. Any one of a number of things. But has the relationship evolved from you taking orders to you and your organization being viewed as a strategic partner, as a topic matter expert? Now, can these agendas align? If not, you need to move on. Is there conflict within the agendas? And you may have seen this where your buyer really wanted to make a decision that was positive and buy from you, but he or she was actually operating in a mode that was contrary to the wishes of their employer. In this situation, we have 3 agendas overlapping. So the agenda of the seller, the buyer's employer, and the buyer are all overlapping. It's looking good, but where's that red agenda? Now that agenda still hasn't moved. So your company isn't being complemented by this deal. There have been deals done by all of us that didn't really complement the agenda of our employer. So I want you to make sure that you're aligning all 4. Now in this situation, you'll close it, but you're going to cry a little bit. If you close this one, you'll cry or feel some discomfort because you and the buyer are happy, but your buyer's boss and your boss aren't happy. And we don't want that. Now back in the day that these guys were selling telephones, you didn't have to worry about this. The reason being is there were far fewer agendas involved in decisions and far less competition. As a refresher, I want you to remember that your job is to always make sure that you have an adequate volume of pending or potential opportunities and that you work constantly on improving your sales skills. And those will increase the sales volume significantly. Recognize that the men and women in these accounts that you're trying to grow get 3,000 marketing touches every day. They take 17 phone calls every day. They meet with 4.8 sales reps, all of whom are claiming that their product or their service is better than the next one. They're very insecure and they will avoid risks. They want to deal with partners, not peddlers. A peddler presents himself or herself to a new department, a new decision maker, a new division of an existing account as a very self-serving individual. I'm here to make money. A partner, on the other hand, presents him or herself as someone who's ready to work at the side, but not on the payroll of the company to help the company achieve its agendas. Now, making cold calls within an existing account is one surefire way to make some people angry. You're taking up their time, their money, they view you as a peddler, your calls will be viewed as an interruption, and they always ask, what's in it for me? WIIFM. But you still need to get broader relationships within an account. The absolute proven best way to grow an account is to have relationships with as many decision makers and influencers as possible. And the only way to do that without causing anger is to consistently work on the bottom item on this chart, which is increase your internal marketing footprint. Now, your top line in terms of growing your accounts will be limited or driven or gated by the amount of time available to you to follow up on those accounts, the number of relationships that you obtain and maintain within an account, the degree of top-of-mind awareness that you broadcast within that account. In other words, how many people do you know inside of that account? And this brings me back to a story that happened to me about 5 or 6 years ago. I had a client that was selling software to the Kaiser Hospital network. The salesperson that I was working with claimed that he owned the Kaiser Hospital network, that he got to see every opportunity to compete for the type of software that his company sold. I asked him and got a response that really scared me. I asked him, how many people do you know within the Kaiser network? He said, just one. And I said, well, there are thousands of people that work there. He says, yeah, but there's only one that buys this kind of software. Well, that one person got promoted. And at that instant, my client's salesperson became a stranger to everybody in that huge organization that had an opportunity to influence a decision to buy software or to actually execute that decision. As a rule of thumb, you should constantly monitor the number of relationships that you are obtaining and that you are maintaining inside of each of your existing accounts. The more relationships, the easier it is for you to grow that account. The fewer relationships, the more fragile your relationship is with that account, and the odds are somebody who wants to take that account away from you is building more relationships. So rule of thumb, and the biggest takeaway that I can suggest for today's session is recognize that he or she who has the most relationships with an account is the sales professional who will grow that account best and at the same time keep that account for the long haul. TOMA, top of mind awareness, is driven by the number of marketing touches that you execute within that account. How many people know about the successes you've had in other divisions or other departments of these accounts? These are all exercises that impact the retention of an account. Now, the Wall Street Journal published a study several years ago that showed that if you can extend the lifetime of an account by just 5%, you can improve the profit of that relationship by 11%. So keep that account X months longer and the profits go up significantly. Funnel leakage is part of the reason why we don't grow our accounts, and the capacity of opportunities for you to work with within your funnel is another gating factor. Overall, the most important thing to remember from this chart is your footprint. How big is your marketing footprint within that account? And you can measure that by going to your CRM system as soon as we're done, looking up the accounts that you're trying to grow and in your existing system, and then just count the number of relationships that you have. And remember, A relationship is a man or woman in the account who has the ability to influence a decision or make a decision, who gets a marketing touch from you at least every 30 days. You see, because we don't have enough relationships, we're not in those other departments or divisions within an account when they make a decision. So candidly, we've lost some sales in accounts where we have good relationships in one division because we know nobody in the other division. We haven't increased our footprint. So your goal to grow accounts or goals rather, is to one, get in touch, and two, stay in touch with all of the accounts. Now I want you to put together an odd statement or an odd document. It's called a personal capability statement. This is not a resume, but what it does do is it highlights the work that you and your company have done for your existing account. Have you helped them bring about a significant change? Have you reduced cost, improved productivity? Make sure you document these things so you can then broadcast your successes to the other divisions. Make sure you spend a lot of time in LinkedIn requesting introductions from the men and women who you know to the men and women in that account that you want to get to know. You can also offer complimentary webinars to the account. And one great touch is to customize the webinar to the needs of that account so it becomes the account's webinar, not yours. Now, one of the best ways to facilitate all of this work is called closed loop marketing or drip marketing or relationship marketing. I don't really care what you call it, but it's simply stated is I want you to touch every brain every month with a marketing message. Educate everyone within that account. I had a client years ago that opened up a relationship with a bank on the East Coast. The young lady that sold that account had one or two contacts, men and women with whom she interacted when she opened the account. But she took to heart the idea of growing her database of relationships within that account. And over the years, she acquired hundreds of names within that account, and she stayed in touch with all of them. In next to no time, she grew that account into the largest account my client had, literally by utilizing the concepts that I'm advocating, which is just to get in touch and stay in touch. Now, most CRM softwares today will do that work for you. Drip marketing is the concept, or closed loop marketing, and use it to grow your footprint. It's nothing more sophisticated than dropping educational newsletters on the decision makers and influencers within that account every month. There's no magic to it. It just takes work. But when you do that work, you can anticipate a 36% increase in year-to-year sales, a 21% increase in conversion rates, 26% increase in the return on the marketing investment, a 17% increase in customer retention. And remember what I said about the impact on profitability by retaining your customers better. So not only do you grow your accounts, but you retain them longer, and that has a significant impact on profitability to the point of the average order going up by 21%. This data comes from a study published by the Aberdeen Research Group. Seminars are another great way to stay involved with your accounts. Do you have some knowledge that can be disseminated to employees of the accounts via seminars? Use a hotel, make these seminars educational, don't pitch. Now, some of the mistakes that I've seen is that some salespeople who are very technology savvy assume that all of their customers are technology savvy. Texting to decision makers that don't do text is an example. Leaving sloppy voicemails, preaching about the features of their product, and trying to make very complicated conversations work utilizing cell phones. Now, cell phone technology has gotten better over the years, but we've all experienced the dreaded cell phone conversation drop, and typically these calls only drop when you're at that critical point in a conversation where you're asking your buyer to make a decision and to buy. Video technology has come down in price so that everyone has the ability to use a webcam or PC camera and make a video. But if it's sloppy, it detracts from your presentation. When we're trying to present to all of the people in our accounts, make sure you practice these skills before you get in front of the customers. And emails that are dumb will get you thrown out of an account. Our goal, very simply, is to make sure that all the prospective departments and divisions of all existing accounts consider you when they're trying to solve a problem. Now, we have to maintain our accounts, and many of us spend far too little time trying to do that. Work with management within your company to try and remove any non-sales beneficial administrative work. Our studies show that the average salesperson spends 34% of his or her day doing non-sales administrative tasks. We also have a problem of following up. If you don't follow up on every situation in every account all of the time, you actually will run into a syndrome that I've nicknamed the gap of good intentions. Now, the lady on your screen came to work that day with the intention of following up on opportunities within her existing accounts, but her desk got piled high with non-sales administrative tasks, and tragically, non-sales administrative tasks supersede the requirement to sell, the reason being that management knows that you didn't do the non-sales administrative task immediately. They don't know that you let the follow-up requirement slip. The stay in touch dilemma is mathematic, and it can be solved with that software that I mentioned a while ago. If you only have 2 accounts per day that say not now, but those accounts have 3 decision makers, the rules of top of mind awareness dictate that you must touch that account 21 times per year, or you may not be considered when they have an actual need to buy a new product or service. And if you do the math, this adds up to 10,000 marketing touches per year. Can't be done. But with CRM software, it can be. So it's up to you to make sure that you drive all of those activities in the form and fashion that you'd like. And the reason it's so important to stay in touch is that the studies have shown that 6 to 18 months after an account says not now, they will buy from somebody a similar or identical product. Actually, 45 to 63% of those leads will buy. But 87% of leads are abandoned, and this includes leads within existing accounts. In my world, all leads are pursued until they buy or die. And I want you to make sure that you embrace that same philosophy to move forward. Now, sales has been presented by many trainers and coaches as a contact sport. It's not. It's about the number of relationships that you have. The guy or gal who has the maximum number of relationships is the guy or gal who will win more often than not. It is not the guy or gal who can make the most phone calls in a day, who can knock on the most doors, or send out the maximum number of postcards. So make sure you focus on creating strategic relationships within your existing accounts, and it's about regular communications. It's a persistent process, and it demonstrates your value. You will then be in the enviable position of having a funnel that has 3 times more opportunities in it than you actually need. That should be your goal. Build your funnel to 3x, 3 times your goal, and keep it there. Stay in touch with your customers utilizing drip marketing or closed loop marketing. The software will do the work for you. Now, there's a concept that I advocate called the Here's What We've Done For You Lately report. Every 90 days, as I said at the beginning of today's presentation, you should have a top-to-top meeting. Again, you may not be at the very top of an organization, but I want you to get as high as possible. And this should be an ongoing strategy. And one of the best ways to do that is to introduce yourself to the next level up with a request for a meeting in order to align. Remember what I talked about the agendas a while ago. You're trying to align your company's resources with the goals, strategies, and tactics of your customer. So send the next level up a request for a meeting that says, I'd like to meet with you to understand your goals in order to align my company to better support them. You'll be surprised at how many senior level decision makers have never been approached that way. When you are approaching them that way, I want you to document the results that your relationship has produced for that company or that division of a company over the past 90 days. Here are the things we've done for you. Show them trends within their business. Show them any opportunities to improve part or all of their business's operating conditions. Rank those accounts that you're working with so that you invest the majority of your time in those divisions or accounts where you have the maximum potential. Don't be a servant. I want you to be a partner to these accounts. So as we say here in Hollywood, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and feel free to give me a call. I'm Gil Cargill.